what's happening now is that budget constraints is determining whether a business is going to be able to appear in LLMs and whether that business is basically future-proof to the evolution of search. Now what we're seeing is with SEO is that you can have possibly the best SEO, but if your landing page isn't designed to keep a user engaged, it actually sends those signals back to Google. Commercial intent always trumps everything else. It's very important to then understand that, okay, depending on the industry type or the product type or the value of that product, you want to be able to optimize a product landing page to a certain degree as well. So that basically encapsulates the entire commercial intent, that it affects the bottom line, it drives revenue to the business.
Welcome to another episode of eCoffee with Experts. I am your host, Austin Willman, and I'm here today with Bhushan Satghare. He is the Senior SEO Director at Impressive Digital out of Melbourne, Australia. Bhushan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show, Austin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and it is an early morning for you. I am blessed to be a little bit later, so let's see if we can wake up the audience with some SEO talk. Now, obviously, you are working with enterprise clients, or Impressive is working into more of the enterprise clients. Tell me a little bit about the difference that you're noticing in that transition from SMBs to more enterprise kind of pitches or that market.
Yeah, so I think with SMBs, it predominantly used to be, it's all about rankings and traffic and, trying to get more leads for SMBs. I think the key difference that we're sort of starting to notice now is with this whole shift towards the AI mode, the AI overviews, getting more visibility in LLMs, it obviously means that you're going to have to do some sort of, high level of outreach, a high level of digital PR to gain that visibility. Now, while small businesses actually understand that this is the way forward, a lot of them don't really have big budgets. I think what's happening now is that budget constraints is determining whether a business is going to be able to appear in LLMs and whether that business is basically future-proof to the evolution of search. And so what's happening is more and more enterprise clients are obviously realizing this. Previously, if they were heavily dependent on, offline marketing and sort of brand awareness, they're kind of like, hey, I'm missing out on this whole online brand awareness thing. I need to get onto this train. And so a lot of these bigger enterprise companies are actually now jumping on with, I wouldn't say just digital performance agencies like Impressive, but they're jumping on with a lot of other digital PR agencies or outreach agencies purely just to build that online reputation and brand awareness. So when it comes to that, I think the key thing there is, in order to have that digital PR brand awareness, you need to have bigger budgets, because we know, working in digital marketing, that digital PR outreach of that very high quality, I think, is very expensive and not everyone can actually afford that. So while you might actually do some sort of analysis or an audit on AI search and LLMs, it kind of, once you've presented your findings, it kind of dies there with a lot of SMBs, because they're like, well, we can't afford this.
Yeah.
It's great that you've provided these insights, but we can't afford this. Whereas with enterprise agencies, they're like, yes, we understand what this is. We want to get on it. What do you need? And so that opens up the conversation to having a slightly bigger budgets or a separate budget to what you're already doing from a digital PR, from a digital marketing perspective.
Yeah. I love that. And we're seeing the same thing at Digital Web Solutions with digital PR really influencing LLM visibility. But you're right, it is a challenge for the SMB market to, you can't just run a digital PR campaign every month. I mean, you could, but that's where all your budget is going to go. And there's other SEO strategies, other maintenance things that we need to do to continue building the offsite authority. And then if you can, once a quarter, once every 6 months or so, launching a digital PR campaign can just accelerate and, reinforce all, let's say, like the links that you've been building the last 6 months or everything.
Correct.
But it's not all. I really like what you were telling me before we started the show about the perspective of bringing in design principles and CRO principles to enhance the SEO experience. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about your perspective on enhancing SEO through those avenues?
Yeah. Look, I mean, if you were to take it in the traditional sense, SEO is more of it's a long-term sort of visibility channel. So SEO is meant to sort of influence your non-brand visibility through your traditional tactics. And then on the other hand, you had CRO, which was predominantly to do with increasing conversions for a website that already had some sort of traffic coming to the site. What we're seeing now is that with the whole change in providing an excellent user experience, the lines between SEO and design slash CRO have kind of blurred over the years, right?
Mm,
Previously, there were two different principles. You'd go, at any given point, you sort of focus probably on SEO initially, and then it's like, oh, now I have traffic, so I want to do a bit more of CRO to leverage some of this traffic and convert them at a higher rate. Now, what we're seeing is with SEO is that you can have possibly the best SEO, but if your landing page isn't designed to keep an user engaged, it actually sends those signals back to Google. And what it does is it kind of works, it's kind of counterintuitive to all the efforts that you're putting into your SEO channel. So if you
mm,
don't have a good landing page design, but you have the best SEO, it's only a matter of time when Google starts to pick up that less and less people are engaging with your site. So it's going
mm,
to sort of build this notion that you're not a good fit for some of the search queries that you're trying to rank for. And
mm,
eventually you'll start to you'll start to slip down the ranks and eventually disappear. So I think this is where a lot of SEOs, with some of the colleagues that we work with onshore as well, are starting to realize that you have to have some level of know-how when it comes to design principles in order to make sure that you're able to blend SEO and design really well. Because traditional sense, SEO and CRO have completely different, thoughts on what should be on a landing page. SEO
mhm,
has always been about content, right? So we need to
mhm,
have more content. We need to have more content. CRO is about, oh, let's just cut the noise out and just make sure that we have really clear call to actions. And there's only a few headlines that, show like the value proposition. But now it's kind of becoming more and more evident that you need to have a little bit of an understanding of SEO because you need to incorporate keywords and content to gain that organic visibility and then also understand design and CRO so that you can enhance your landing page to get the most user actions from that.
yeah, you make a good point. Like, if I'm searching for something, let's just say it's in, like a legacy industry, or by legacy industry, I mean something that is long-standing, like finance, banking, insurance, real estate, these long-standing industries. If I'm searching for things like, first of all, it's very competitive, legal, like the legal field. And
Very,
second of all, if I can land on that page, even though my SEO work has brought someone to the page, if I
yeah,
open the page and it's not a good user experience, it doesn't capture my attention, and there's no clear call to action, and I bounce, that bounce rate is what you're saying signals back to Google and says like, "Hey, great job getting these people here, but your website sucks, man." And so I'm not
yeah.
going to show it to people.
Yeah, correct. I think there's a
Yeah.
term for that. I'm not sure if it's still being used, but the term that was used at the time was pogo sticking. So,
Yeah.
users that
Mhm.
jump on Google wanting to find an answer to their question will sort of jump onto a website, and Google sort of starts to look at, how long are they on that website? Are they coming back to the search results or not?
Yeah.
If they're coming back to the search results, let's say within 1 or 2 seconds, that actually sends Google a signal, and over time, those sort of negative signals compound. So when Google then starts to reassess whether particular search result is fit for the query, if it starts to sort of fall back on these signals. And if you're one of those businesses that have consistently provided a bad user experience and people have actually jumped back into the search results and clicked on another result and stayed there, that tells
Mm.
Google that you're not a good fit. So I think the whole design and SEO thing now is even more important than it was before. They're not two separate principles anymore. There has to be a way that you can find this happy medium between the two disciplines and they work together to really enhance the user experience for people that come onto your website.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. We have this. There was a client that we had who is a professional videographer, a luxury videographer in Miami,
Yeah.
Florida for luxury yachts, and they do, all sorts of events. He did some work with like one of the guys from Shark Tank, and he was talking about, we did an SEO audit for him, and we found that his site speed was slow. And he's like,
Hmm.
I know my speed is slow because my top fold is a high quality video. It's like a
Yeah.
looping video, but it's extremely high quality. And he's like, that's what my business is. So I can't change that for something that loads faster. Let me put this back over to you, Bhushan. In a situation like this where you have, multimedia, a rich multimedia landing page or like a homepage or something, because that's what the business is. However, it affects the page load speed, or it increases the bounce rate or the pogo stick rate essentially.
Hmm.
How do you approach something like that and find the balance in different niches or different industries?
Look, I think one of the key things that we always tend to look at is the core web vital scores. So, yes, it's probably not going to be the one thing that magically changes your, SEO and organic visibility, but I think it has a long-term impact on your overall user experience. So, if you're having
Mm-hmm.
a video that takes really long to load, like you gave that example of a yacht
Mm-hmm.
videographer that has this looping video that causes your page load speeds to drastically decrease. I
Mm-hmm.
think in order to make sure, like, you have to understand that if that is what draws users to the website and they want to watch that, you have to understand, okay, what's the best way to tackle this? I don't want to take the video out completely, but then it's
Yeah.
also drastically reducing the load speeds. In that
Mm-hmm.
sense, I would probably say that having a automatically looping video, that's constantly playing is probably not the best thing. You might want to have a play button on that
Yeah.
page where a user, if they're interested, obviously you have to have a bit more of a, initial value proposition with a clear headline and a small, piece of text to kind of give them an insight as to who you are. But if they really are intrigued with that initial value proposition and they want to watch some of your work, then yes, they have that option of, hitting the play button and watching your video. That can, to a certain degree, improve your page load speeds. But I think a lot of the problems that people have is that they're chasing this golden number. They open up tools like, web dev, page speed insights by Google, or they're opening up the core web vital score tools by Google, and they're trying to get this golden 100 out of 100 score. You have to understand that that's not realistically possible.
Yeah.
If you were to get that 100 out of 100 score, you'd essentially have a plain HTML site. You can't
Mm.
have that. You have to have a rich experience. And so a lot of businesses, they take these scores very seriously, but it's our job, or we try to make them understand that, look, these scores are only as good as what you can do with your site. So if you were to maintain a level of, pizzazz or a level of functionality that you think your users actually like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we can do our best to improve those scores. But at a certain point, it's going to hit a ceiling. And the only way to get past that ceiling is to strip out everything from your site, which, actually affects the overall user
Mm.
experience. So we have to make them understand that, yes, it's good to have 100 out of 100 scores, but not at the cost of a bad user experience or, a very sort of basic looking site.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking of a scenario, for this, for this guy who has the video website, how you could implement exactly everything you're talking about, understand the keywords, understand the target market, and have good SEO that brings people there. But once they get on the site, instead of a massive, heavy lift of a high quality video that's playing, you can then play into the CRO aspect and, have curiosity driven headlines that speak to the ICP and also encourage them to play a video, that might be
Correct.
blurred out, or something that's like, I don't know, you won't believe this like $10 million yacht that we shot at Miami Boat Week or something like that. Click to see the video, whatever.
Yep.
Actually something to engage the person instead of just, going one or the other. We could either have HTML or we could have a rich media on the landing page or on the top fold. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. What about when, going back to SEO, when you're seeing
Mhm.
rankings be affected, rankings dropping or, organic traffic dropping, but there have been, let's say, multiple updates. Google sends out either a core update or just like a smaller one. Where do you look for attribution to what could be the cause? Like what's the checklist when you're seeing performance dip on a site?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So many a times, you're sort of aware of potentially a Google core update that's coming up. Now, some of them might be very specific. If it's a spam update or if it's a helpful content update, you know
Hmm.
what it's going to target, right? But when it comes to like a generic core update basically that happened recently here in Australia, I'm not too sure when it rolled out in the US, but it happened here in Australia. You have to sort of think about, okay, what is this core update really doing? We don't know. Google doesn't come out and say
Hmm.
this is what the core update is going to do. We don't. So typically, we tend to sort of monitor what the fluctuations are kind of occurring during that core update. We just kind of wait, we just kind of ride out the wave. And then when things start to settle down, typically after a couple of weeks, Google tends to release a micro update. To a certain degree, that micro update may or may not, reverse a few things that actually occurred during core update. Once that period has passed, you want to go back to your, I think Google Search Console is probably the best place to go and look for this. But if you want to try and understand what's kind of affected your traffic or your rankings, you need to first understand how all the different page types are performing. So if I was to take e-commerce as an example, traffic's plummet, maybe say 25, 30%. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide all the different page types. So I want to check for performance at a product page level. I want to check for performance at a category page level. And then I want to check for performance at a blog page level. I want to first see where in totality is the traffic drop coming from? Is it coming from my product pages? Is it coming from my blogs? Okay, once I've understood where it's coming from, so let's say in this situation, it's coming predominantly from my blogs, I'm going to investigate that section of the site a little bit more closely because my product pages or my category pages seem to be all right. Yeah, they might be pretty flat, but they haven't been particularly affected by the core update. So if I was to dive down into the blogs and, blogs are obviously predominantly driven by informational queries, I'm going to then sit and look at all the different types of queries that are potentially dropped in rankings. Or actually, two parts to that. Have the queries actually dropped in rankings, or have the queries actually dropped in clicks, but the overall impressions and rankings are relatively stable or actually have grown? So again, you kind of divide that into two parts, and then you start to analyze all the different search queries. Now, some of those search queries, if you've been working in SEO for quite some time, you already know the types of search results those search queries are going to show. So in that case, what I tend to do is I'll tend to pick up maybe a small handful of search queries and check them on Google to see, what is happening with these search queries? Why are the clicks dropping from here?
Mm.
And if they've actually dropped in rankings, why have they dropped in rankings? Then you tend to look at, okay, Google's launched a new search feature on the landing page.
Mm.
Google's introduced more ads on this. Google's done this or Google's done that. Once you've understood the changes that have occurred on the search landscape, you can then sort of determine what you need to do moving forward. In some cases, you may not be able to do anything, right?
Yeah.
It might just be a scenario where an informational query before, and I think this typically happens with SaaS, is an informational query sometimes triggers a commercial landing page as well. And as
Mm.
a result, over time, Google starts to show ads for these informational queries. So the only thing you
Mm.
can do in that scenario is either you try to improve your organic visibility by putting in more efforts from an SEO perspective, or you're just going to accept the fact that, yeah, there's Google's going to be showing ads for my query. So I have to also run ads to a certain degree. So
Mm.
you can do that.
Mm.
The other thing that you would probably also want to analyze is when your informational queries in this scenario are currently dropping, why are they dropping? You might want to investigate, the top 5 or 6 competitors that are now appearing on page one for this and inspect their landing pages. You want to do a bit of a comparison. Okay, if this is the landing page, is it a blog page? Is it a commercial page?
Hmm.
What type of page is now appearing for this query? Is my landing page aligned with what Google is now showing? If it's not, then you're basically going to have to change tactic and say, okay, I can't actually show a blog page for this query anymore. Or as a matter of fact, Google doesn't want to show a blog page for this anymore. It wants to
Hmm.
show a commercial page. So in that situation, then you have to change tactic and it's like, okay, I'm going to get rid of this blog page, or maybe there's a way to leverage some of this SEO authority this blog page has, but eventually you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have to convert it into a more sort of commercial intent landing page. So I
Hmm.
think that's how you would probably want to investigate a lot of the ranking drops or that you're sort of experiencing from your site. But of course, look, I think the foundational thing there is also to make sure that your website is technically sound. So you have
Hmm.
to investigate technical SEO and rule it out as one of the causes. And then you're going to be looking at all of your different landing pages and the queries that have been affected leading to this drop in traffic. So that's typically how we would tend to analyze and then decide what sort of strategies we want to roll out. Do we want to roll out a more sort of robust content strategy, sort of remedy the situation, or do we think it's more to do with backlinks? So we'll have maybe a little bit more aggressive backlinking approach to regain
Mm-hmm.
some of that lost momentum. I think it really depends once you've had a really, a deep dive into what your performance currently looking like after a core update has finished. But one of the key things that we always say to most clients is wait and see what happens. Once the dust has settled, that's
Yeah.
when you start to sort of analyze and take corrective action. If you start to have a knee-jerk approach within the first couple of days or first week of when that rollout is currently happening, you're probably going to do more damage than good.
Man, yeah, that's a good point. I'm just thinking, well, first of all, I want to know, do you like what's your tech stack or what tools are you using in order to analyze, like you had mentioned, the competitors' landing pages, maybe they're informational queries, but they're showing commercial landing pages, and you find that the competitors who are maybe surpassing you are actually either intentionally or unintentionally doing that strategy. Like, do you
Mhm.
have a go-to tool where that can kind of check the competitor analysis and see what's going on?
Yeah, I think we use a combination of Ahrefs. Obviously, we
Mhm.
found that Ahrefs gives us a little bit more insight. It's not the kind of tool that would be ideal for a business owner because there's a lot more data and it's a little bit more technical in terms of the information that it gives you. But a lot of our competitor analysis happens from Ahrefs. And then there's an element, obviously, of manual research. So
Mhm.
we'll sort of pick up some of the insights and information we're getting from Ahrefs, decide, okay, if these are some of the competitors, because I think it gives you a bit of a snapshot on the SERP changes as well, which is a really cool feature we love about Ahrefs at this
Mm.
point. It actually shows who's come up, who's gone down, by how many positions. So we tend to analyze the competitors based on that, and then we'll do a bit more of a manual comparison of the landing pages. But yeah,
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
answer to your question is, yeah, I think we generally use Ahrefs and then to monitor the GSC performance internally. Previously, we used to just rely solely on Google Search Console, but I think we've actually found a tool called SEO Gets, which is fabulous. It helps us
Mm.
in actually, dividing the Google Search Console data into page types, topic clusters, content clusters, and then we can actually see which pages, which queries are growing, decaying, and that kind of helps us analyze some of the performance as well. So it's actually been SEO Gets for us as a SEO team has been a godsend.
Is that GETS? SEO
Yeah,
gets?
SEOGETS.com.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I'm definitely gonna
So
check that out. We're always looking
yeah,
for cool tool recommendations.
yeah, we don't have a lot of different tools that we use in our stack. We try to keep it very simple. So we use
Yeah.
Screaming Frog for technical SEO. We use Ahrefs for keyword research, competitor comparison, and then we
Mhm.
use SEO Gets to actually check our campaign's performance and get a bit more under the hood.
Yeah, keeping the tech stack lean and also the team like relatively lean with AI. You can do a lot more with a lot less these days. Being conscious of time and as we wrap up here, how do you approach like keyword mapping and intent clusters are different and
Yeah.
Google and SERPs are they're more fluid. Like they're just changing so much, maybe than they were a few years ago. So how are you thinking about keyword mapping, keyword planning, and everything else?
I think the big thing for us is always and will continue to be understanding keyword intent. Most people will chase really high volume keywords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people might chase a keyword like shoes, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to be realistic about what you're optimizing toward and what you intend to rank for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to understand intent of the kind of traffic that you want to bring to your site, and then finding the very specific keywords to match that intent. So once you've gathered a set of keywords that match specific intent, and for us it's always been start commercial. At the end of the day, commercial
Mm-hmm.
keywords is what's going to affect the bottom line of the business. And that's essentially what business owners want as well. So we always focus on commercial intent keywords. And that's how our keyword research starts as well. We try to have a bit of a mind map on what it is that we're trying to build out for the site. So if we're talking about, let's say, from e-commerce for dresses, how do we want to approach ranking for dresses? We want to divide the dresses by the different styles. We want to divide the dresses category maybe by materials, by different
Mm.
colors, by different lengths, or even different occasions. So that's basically what informs our keyword research. So we need to have a bit of a plan first, and then we do keyword research to align with that plan. But it most likely always goes back to intent. We try to find keywords that have a very specific intent. Typically for a category page, it'd be more sort of commercial slash navigational intent. So
Mm-hmm.
we try to find keywords like that and then decide whether we want to create a new page or whether we already have an existing page that we can map these keywords to. Yeah, commercial intent always trumps everything else. From there, once we've exhausted that avenue of creating category pages for a site, sometimes we'll sort of go back and think, actually, this website has some really good products. It might be, let's say, an electronic retail store that has some really good products. And typically we know that when it comes to mobile phones or when it comes to gaming consoles or when it comes to cameras, people generally tend to land on a product page because
Mm-hmm.
they're at that stage now where they finish the research, they know what kind of camera they want. They might want an Canon EOS Mark II. So if you want to appear or want a product page to appear for that query, then you have to make sure that a product landing page is then optimized to match that user intent. So it will have all the
Mm.
specifications, it will have, all the features and benefits, who's it for, what do you do with it. So it's very important to then understand that, okay, depending on the industry type or the product type or the value of that product, you want to be able to optimize a product landing page to a certain degree as well. So that basically encapsulates the entire commercial intent that affects the bottom, it affects the bottom line. It drives revenue to the business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think long term,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to bring more top of the funnel traffic to your site? That's where you start to do a bit more around. I'm just going to take this camera example. You're going to take, to do reviews of particular types of cameras. You're going to have, article that talks about this review, maybe transcribed from an original video review, or you might actually have what's the top 10 cameras that we recommend if you were to
Mm.
if you were to be interested in wildlife photography. So you'll
Mm-hmm.
have a comparison of maybe the top 5 cameras that this business actually stocks that might be applicable for wildlife photography. And then you do a full breakdown, because at this
Mm.
point, someone might be looking for a wildlife photography camera, but they don't know where. So they're researching. And if you can help, make that decision easier through the form of a comparison table or a review or anything of that sort, you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
basically then bring this user to a point where they know what kind of camera they want, and you're kind of funneling them down from that research phase to a purchase phase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, there's a lot there, and I wish we had more time to go in seriously, because that, what I'm hearing from that is we shouldn't shy away from really leaning into commercial keywords and commercial strategy first, even though it's more competitive. It's more expensive, and there's more on the line. Honestly, like
Yeah.
if you're not good at SEO, like it shows up when you're talking about keyword strategy for commercial intent. So, let that be a lesson to all the SMBs that are looking to hire an agency and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll just do a lot of top of funnel content and yeah, we'll get to the commercial stuff later, but first we need to, build the organic traffic." I mean, all fine and good and to each their own, but what I'm hearing is you kind of have to reverse engineer and really look at what drives the revenue of the business and what metrics
Correct.
do you really want to base your success on, not just impressions and traffic, although good, but they can sometimes be vanity metrics.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
yeah. Thank you for sharing all that, Bhushan. Where can we find out more about you and about Impressive Digital online?
So you can find out more about me on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn. Just look up Bhushan Satghare. You'll get my LinkedIn profile, all my work experience, how many years I've actually been doing SEO. And then if you're interested in Impressive Digital, just reach out to us. We're Impressive Digital here in Australia. We're one of the, few enterprise agencies with lots and lots of awards under our belt. So we basically we put our money where our mouth is, and
Mm.
we're a fully integrated digital marketing strategy. So we kind of think of ourselves as an extension of any business when it comes to digital marketing.
And I love that actually upon visiting the website, it's clear that you practice what you preach. The website looks great. It loads fast. It's very it's appealing. It's tasty to my eyes when I went there. And it's very clear who you're trying to market to and what you offer. And also the awards are very impressive. So nice job.
No
Whoever
pun
created the
intended.
website. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They are impressive. Oh man, that's hilarious. So thank you for being here. Yeah, to the audience, go check out Bhushan and Impressive.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. It's been a pleasure. I loved having our conversation.
Me too. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.